And while I'm on the tune, another thing what I was actually, that was in the same moment when I was thinking about unconditional love. I was thinking, and it was like all the time going through my head and my mind, why quite often we are so desperate to get our exes back. It's like, what can lead someone to become an ex? There could be two ways. Either it happens suddenly because they just come home and say they are leaving you for whichever reason, another woman, they just don't love you anymore or something. Or there are situations when you all the time, for example, argue so much, and you just say, that's it, I'm done, and you go different ways. The thing is, grown-up people who actually in a normal civil way decide to split up and separate or divorce if it's a marriage, you will realize that most of the time, not even once, anyone will gonna think even about this option as going back to their ex. Why? Because separation happened with a reason, and it always happens with a reason, whichever reason. So when it's in a civil way, people understand that they either outgrew, they fell out of love, they don't have anything in common anymore, and even when they separate, of course we miss certain people for the times when it was great, for the times when there was fun, and especially at the first moment when we become single, there are moments when we feel a little bit lost because we have been all the time in this relationship dynamic, and suddenly we are all by ourselves, and it's normal when we feel a little bit lost. Don't say you feel lonely, you feel a little bit lost. And that is the trickiest moment, when everyone starts to miss something what was before, but you separated for a reason. And people who actually finished everything on a normal way, when they start to feel lost or missing old good days, yeah, they miss that, but they understand, and they don't dwell in this missing part too much, because they understand that they split up with someone for a reason, and they know that there was nothing they could change anymore, because everything was literally, all was done, and there is nothing you can save anymore. So in the end of the day, if you have children, it's great if you stay civil because of the children, and you can be friendly towards each other. In different cases, it becomes like you even don't speak anymore because you are so disconnected through all the previous time that you realize you actually have nothing in common. And but here, another situation is when something happens, like during argument, or someone comes and breaks up out of the blue, or they just suddenly runs off with someone. This is like the case when one person becomes very lost because they don't get it, what happened and why it happened, and the other person, that's already a different story, because they probably are doing whatever they are doing, but at some point they could be in the same missing stage as well. So first, like from person's perspective, who is sort of left, yeah, what happens with that person? First of all, the person is confused. Yeah, simply because they didn't expect anything like that to happen. They are confused, they feel betrayed, they feel broken, and they are even angry. And then when this all negative moment stops, when everything is cried out, sad out, like everything is like over with the sad part, that's when this lost feeling kicks in, when you start to miss good times. And that's the tricky moment, when somebody starts to want their ex back. And then it's a really good thing to ask yourself, why? Why do you want them back? Just because there were like good times? But then think about the bad times. Would you want those times back too? Many people would say, no, well, you know, everything would be different this time, because yeah, it would be different. And it would be even worse different, not great. I'm telling you now that straight away. I've been through that sort of process. The other person who leaves you, they have fun, everything is great. But something happens, and in most of the cases, what happens, they become, even if they run off with someone else, or they start relationship with someone else, at some point something happens when it breaks up as well. And what happens on that moment? They start to think about ex, and they think, oh yeah, they were much better, they were taking care about me, or whatever. So they reason, if they decide, oh, I want them back, and maybe they even try to get back, most of the time it's selfish thing, just because they just don't want to stay in a situation where they are hanging somewhere in between. They are not even thinking neither about the ex as person, how they feel, neither about that person with whom they just broke up or whatever happened. They even don't think about them. They think about themselves only. They suddenly are like, oh my God, I was in a good place there, I left it, and I was sort of in a good place here, and suddenly I'm nowhere. You should have think before you did all what you did, you know. Right? But they don't. They don't think about it. And when they go back to exes, what they do? Oh, I'm sorry, I was wrong, I didn't mean to, I will be this, I will be better. For how long? People who take their exes back, I am one of them. What happens? First, whichever time, it's again all great, it's all honeymoon stage, everything is nice. And when they start to feel secure in these relationships, they start to do exactly the same thing. So don't be surprised that after a while, whenever the everyday routine will gonna kick in again, when this all fun and games part will gonna slow down, and you will gonna get back to your normal routines and everyday lives, don't be surprised that one day that person will gonna come in and will do exactly the same thing. And you know why? Because none of you worked on your issues what was already before. You didn't work on your issues regarding what happened in between you, on your deep core issues, why it even went that way, why even you attracted person like that. Do you think that person even worked on them? They had no time. They were just doing whatever they were doing. They just started to miss you just because maybe, even if they haven't been with other person, if they just suddenly split up with you, they just went off single and they said, oh, I don't want relationships anymore. What they were doing most of the time, living their single life, getting on with some other persons, maybe like on one night stands, partying around, doing whatever. But when that sort of illusional bliss started to ease down, what happened? They start to miss someone who was taking care about them. They even didn't think why they wanted to go away. It was just one moment, maybe they decide, oh, I'm fed up with these relationships. I want to be free as a bird and whatever else. But did they actually sit down and thought why they felt that way? What was wrong in them towards you or towards any other relationships? They didn't. They were just enjoying themselves. And when they felt bored, because they don't have anything interesting on that moment, that's when they started to miss you. And that's why they decide, it wasn't that bad. I probably will gonna go back and I will just say that I was an asshole and I will just beg for taking me back because it was so cozy there, it was so comfy there. And after a while, they probably will gonna do exactly the same thing. Rarely anyone during separation time actually do work on themselves and do understand what was wrong, what they didn't get from relationships they were in, what was the thing that didn't satisfy them, and why it happened the way it happened. It's so rare when someone actually does it. It's just the way how we humans are. And the worst part is like when you get back together, you haven't worked on your issues, you haven't worked on what you have to work on, and you dream about different outcome, but there can't be different outcome. Okay, for example, you start to work on your issues all together when you come back. Well, that's rare as well, and maybe it can work out as long as you both take it seriously. But most of the times you get back just because you started to miss someone, just because at that moment you felt a little bit lost, just because you start to reminisce on old times, on good times. But there is a reason why you broke up. What is the reason? And when you will gonna find out the reason, and when you will gonna work on that reason, not just like in words, yeah, let's work on it, but when you actually truly work on it, and if you understand that you actually want to work on it, because quite often people say, yes, let's work on it, but already on that moment they understand, I will not be able to accept this ever. So they sort of work for, I even can't understand why. So taking back your ex, think carefully. Why are you doing this? Is it just because you start to miss them for a brief moment for the good things? Is it just because for a brief moment you felt lonely? But then why do you feel lonely? No one should feel lonely when they are on their own. I mean, like, if you love yourself enough, you will not gonna feel lonely. I don't feel lonely. Yeah, sometimes I feel bored. I want to speak with someone, but I don't feel lonely because of that. So I sometimes just want maybe company with whom to talk, but as quickly as it comes, it's the same quickly it goes. And you always can find someone with whom you can talk. It doesn't mean you have to go back to your ex straight away, just because you start to miss them. Think on the main question and work on yourself regarding that question. And the main question regarding exes are, you split up for a reason. What is the reason? When you remember that, think, do you really want to take them back even they are pushing on all your emotional buttons on that moment? What was the reason you split up?